Greetings and welcome to another Warhammer Underworlds Warband review. Today I'm going over Grinkrak's Looncurse, the new warband for Warhammer Underworlds Gnarlwood. But before we get into things, thanks goes to Games Workshop for providing this to review for free. As always, I aim to be honest, impartial and constructively critical. But yeah, let's get on with the view, and please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know what you thought of the warband and this review as well. And I will also be going over the new Warband rival deck sold separately as well. But yeah, I've also got a Discord you can check out in the episode description below, as well as a Patreon if you want to give me some more support. But yeah, for this review, for the narrative, the Looncurse are led by Grinkrak the Great, who is a loon boss of considerable proportions. Unfortunately, him and his crew have been kind of disillusioned by the mushrooms that they eat, making them think that they are noble and brave warrior knights. So they now go around fighting around the Age of Sigmar world, trying to kill those they think are worthy opponents, and now they're in the Gnarlwood trying to make a name for themselves. So this warband is a 7-fighter warband, which is basically the largest you can be, and they're Goblin Knights. They're pretty interesting. A 7-fighter warband is usually very swarmy. They're like a swarm horde warband, usually good at holding objectives, but not really having that many tough and strong fighters. So this should be an interesting team. We've already had Goblin warband before with the Bad Moons guys. They're okay. They had 9 models, and this is kind of a retread in a way. They're okay. I think the leader's probably the best for me, just because he looks like a crazy Loon King and would be great for any Age of Sigmar or Night Goblin armies. Other than that, the miniatures come on Goblin green instead of bright yellow plastic, which is nice. And apart from that, they actually go together quite quickly because they're small little goblins and some squigs. So for the leader, we have Grinkrak the Great. He is movement free, 2 block, 3 wounds with a Moon Slicer. They inspire when they have 3 or more other... he inspires when 3 or more other surviving friendly fighters are inspired. He has the dub reaction, not dab. And obviously this is a destruction warband. Use this after you score a non-quest objective. Choose one other surviving friendly fighter and you inspire them. So they're like a worse Thundrix Profiteers. I really don't like that it's specifically objectives that aren't quest objectives, because some quest objectives aren't that easy, and it's like you're cutting out some of the warband special tools. So I really don't like that. It's probably a balance thing, but I personally think it's unneeded, considering you need 3 or more inspired to inspire your leader. Grinkrak inspired goes to nothing, no change really. He's actually quite slow as well. He goes to free smash really on his melee attack. Other than that, there's no real need to inspire him. He's just an okay fighter. You have Gribbed a Wonky Lance, who is your Night Squig. He has movement 4, 3 wounds, 1 block. He has a Lance that has knockback 1 and a Squighorn, which is range 1, 2 smash, 2 damage and impact. So it +1 damage during a charge. And he inspires when you score this fighter's quest objective. So you can either be inspired by your leader or by scoring a quest, which is interesting. While inspired, he goes to movement 5 and 2 dodge instead of 1 block. And his lance goes to 3 fury and his horn goes to 3 smash. So you kind of want to inspire him quickly. Pointy Burke is movement 3, 2 wounds, 1 block, and a weak attack. And he also inspires when you score this fighter's quest objective. Burke inspired goes to 2 dodge, and he gets slightly better with 2 damage on his attack. Moonface Nags has the same inspire condition and is basically the same, and inspires to go to 3 fury instead of 2 damage. So basically one of your mooks. Skolo and Pronk are a duo. So they have a Squigapult. They're only movement 2, but they are 3 wounds. So their Squigapult is range 3, 2 fury, 2 damage, steady and gnashing. So you can only make this attack action once per phase, and +1 range as this fighter has no move and or charge tokens, and break one of the target's upgrades. So as long as you roll a crit. So that's pretty neat. And they also inspire via scoring their own quest objective. Inspired, they go to 2 block and go to 3 fury on their attack, which is nice. Poking Snark is movement 3, 3 wounds with a spear, which is gnashing, so on a crit it breaks one of your opponent's objectives. And Inspiring goes to movement 4 with 3 fury and 2 damage on the spear. Then you've got Snowball to Spore. Score this fighter's like quest objective again. Movement 3, 2 wounds. And then has a Trumpet, which is range 3, 1 damage with stagger. He just pumps out some sick beats. When inspired, he gains Cleave on his Trumpet, which is very impressive. So for the faction objectives, you have Arm Yourself. This is a dueling quest. You can score this. So quest objectives, in the power step, you can give this to a friendly fighter that has no tokens or quests instead of playing a power card, and you don't draw a replacement. If this fighter is taken out of action, you can add this card to your hand even if you have 3 or more objective cards. And this one is scored in the end phase if you have 2 or more upgrades of this fight and this fighter is in enemy territory, which I don't like. It's pretty tough for 1 glory. If it was 2 glory, completely get this, otherwise no. But quest objectives are kind of neat in themselves, where you can basically give them in the last power step unless they have a mid-scoring condition. So you have Looncurse Conquest, which is a dual objective. So you need 3 or more fighters in enemy territory, and each of them is inspired and or has 1 or more upgrades, which for 3 glory, even though you can score at any turn, is not good. Looncurse Infestation is a surgeon hybrid. Score this immediately after an activation if there are more friendly fighters in another player's territory than there are that player's fighters in that territory, or your warband holds objectives 1, 2, and 3. If you hold objectives 1, 2, and 3, this is alright, otherwise it's quite tough. So you have Looncurse Scragam. For this objective, it's a dueling quest. You score this if this fighter is adjacent to 2 more fighters and one of them is a friendly fighter. For 1 glory, this isn't too bad because you can just hold this until the last power step, so that's alright. Meanest of them all, score this immediately after a friendly leader's attack action that takes a target out of action. It is good, but your leader isn't that damaging, so mob him. This is a surge quest. Scores this immediately after a supported friendly fighter's successful attack action if this fighter made that attack action or supported that fighter. So it's actually pretty good, although you kind of probably want to be careful who you give it to. Then you have this card, which I can't say at the moment because my voice is going to die. It's a surgeon quest. Score this immediately after an enemy fighter's attack action that targets this fighter and fails. I don't like it because you're counting your opponent to fail and your team isn't actually that defensive. Then for this objective, it's a surge quest. Scores this immediately after this fighter's attack action that takes the target out of action if this target had a higher wounds characteristic than this fighter. So basically kill someone larger than you, which is actually quite reliable, and for 2 glory, it's actually pretty good. Questing gets hybrid, scores an end phase if there are 3 or more quest cards in your scored objectives, or you hold objectives 1 and 2. It's a win more, and I'm not really a fan of it. Run them down for surge and quest, scores immediately after a fighter's successful charge action, that, successful attack. So for 1, that's not bad, and it kind of synergizes with your knight as well. Small glories. Scored this if each surviving friendly fighter is inspired or has 1 or more upgrades. For 2 glory, it's not great really, because considering you have 7 guys. That's ours, that is. It's a quest. Scored in the end phase if this fighter is holding an objective with the same number as the current round number. So it's not great. I wouldn't run this. For Gambits, you have Bold Pylon. Choose up to 2 friendly fighters, push each chosen fighter up to 2 hexes so they're adjacent to the same enemy fighter. Really good. Enthusiastic Dubbing. Dub. Choose 1 friendly fighter adjacent to a friendly leader. Deal 1 damage to the chosen fighter, then inspire that fighter. It's okay, but you're kind of too weak, and inspiring isn't that important. Gittish Celerity. Choose 1 friendly fighter that has a quest card, +2 move, and persist until the end of the phase until you score that card. I don't like it. Gittish Ferocity. Choose 1 friendly fighter that has a quest card, +1 dice to their range 1 or 2 attack actions. It's okay, but there are better cards for that. Gittish Resilience. +1 defense if you have a quest card. It's not that great. Healing Spores. Heal 1 each friendly fighter. You need Snowbow alive. You don't have enough wounds for this. Pocket Squig. Choose 1 friendly fighter. Scatter 2 from that fighter and deal 1 hat damage to 1 enemy fighter in 1 hex in the chain. Should be every enemy fighter. I still love this card. It has the best. If you're a fan of Pocket Sand, Pocket Squig is the sequel you've been waiting for. Sound the Charge. Push each friendly fighter in your territory up to 1 hex towards the nearest enemy fighter. Need Snowbow alive. This is really useful. Always take this. Stab, and stab again. Reaction uses after an activation which a friendly fighter where they made one or more failed attack actions. You can make one attack action. Really good. Stick the boot in as a reaction. Use this after a friendly fighter's activation if that fighter is adjacent to one or more vulnerable enemy fighters that are adjacent to one or more other friendly fighters. Choose one of those vulnerable fighters and deal 1 damage to that chosen fighter. No, this is super situational. For upgrades, you have Despicable Cad. This fighter's range 1 attack actions have cleave. In addition, fighters supported by this fighter considered have 1 additional supporting fighter. This is okay. It's not bad. Downtrodden Squire. Reaction. After this fighter's move action, choose one friendly fighter that was adjacent at the start. Push that fighter the shortest distance so that it's adjacent. Yeah, that's pretty good considering it's a push. It's a good free mobility. Extra pointy boots, +1 damage to range 1 attack actions, amazing. Fortifying Fungus, when this fighter is dealt damage, reduce the damage by 1. It's really good for this warband. Cunning Advance, action, push each inspired friendly fighter up to 2 hexes, restricted to your leader. No. Cunning Knight, +1 damage to this fighter's attack action while this fighter has 1 or more supporting fighters, which is really good. Leg Biter is a range 1/2 smash, 2 damage with hamstring on a crit. Give the target 1 move token reaction after you score a friendly fighter's quest card. If this card is in your hand, give it to free. It's okay. It's just giving move tokens is kind of pointless now. Magnificent Bounder. This fighter is flying, gets +1 move. It's restricted to Grib. It should be +2 move. Quest then, +1 wounds. Reaction. After you score this friendly fighter's quest card, you can give this for free. This is really good. Really good. Wicked Slitter is range 1, 3 fury and 1 damage with Grievous. It sounds familiar. I believe I've seen this card before, but otherwise it's okay. So now I'll cover the Fearsome Fortress rival deck. So if you haven't figured it out already, the universal cards that would have come in this warband have now been split into a separate rivals deck. And I believe the warband is still £26, while the rivals deck is £17.50. So I'm reviewing them together because why not? So this is the Fearsome Fortress. It also has a plot card. So that means free for rivals deck with plot cards, which means you can't really mix this deck in championship. But anyway, so the plot card is after you place the feature token, a player using this plot card places 1 available feature token within 1 hex of no one's territory, but not in a starting hex, blocked hex, lethal hex, or cover hex. When they do, they can choose which side it is face up. If more than 1 player is using this plot card, those players roll off and the winner places a token first, followed by the player to their left and so on. So effectively, the game has 2 spare feature tokens. So this lets you place both. But remember, a feature token at the time of Gnarlwood is one side is an objective and the other side is a cover hex. You get to choose which one it goes up. So for the objectives, we have Bold Sortie. Score this immediately as a surge after an activation step in which a friendly fighter's charge action began on a feature token in your territory. For One Glory, this is okay, but obviously it's better if you have more ranged fighters. Conquered Domain. Score this in end phase if there is a friendly fighter on a feature token within 1 hex of no one's territory. Gain 1 additional glory point for each other friendly fighter on a feature token within 1 hex of no one's territory. So you can actually get quite a lot of glory from this, especially as you reveal this, it can be quite a high scoring card. I actually like this a lot. Earthworks, Jim. Surge, score this immediately after a friendly fighter is given a guard token if that fighter token is on a feature token within 1 hex of no one's territory. That's very, very good. Impregnable Defenses, score this immediately after an enemy fighter's failed attack action if that action targeted a friendly fighter on a feature token within 1 hex of no one's territory. It's too risky. I understand what they're trying to do, but I don't like it. Lethal Defenses, score this immediately after an enemy fighter is taken out of action within 1 hex of 1 or more of your feature tokens that are within 1 hex of no one's territory. That's okay. I don't mind that. Proud Castellan, score this in end phase if your leader is on a feature token in your territory that is within 1 hex of no one's territory. It's okay for 1 glory. Not bad. You can set that up with normal objectives. Raise the Walls. There's a duel. Score this in end phase if 3 or more feature tokens are adjacent to 1 or more other feature tokens, and there are more of those feature tokens within 1, and 3 or more of those feature tokens are within 1 hex of no one's territory. For 1 glory, it's not really that great. Raw Materials is a surge and duel. Score this immediately after you place a feature token within 1 hex of no one's territory during an action phase if 1 or more friendly fighters are out of action. This is really tough, especially if your opponent is also using this deck. So Not really a fan. Siege Breakers. Scores an end phase if there are no enemy fighters in your territory. Really good for 2 glory, like this. Stockpile. Scores an end phase if your warband holds an objectives whose number add up to 6 or more, e.g. objectives 2 and 4. For 2 glory, it's not bad. It's weird, but I get it. I think it's not bad. Especially in considering if numbers 6, if the other objectives are numbers 6 and 7, because you could actually score this by holding 1 objective. So I actually like this. To the Walls, Surge Shield. Scores this immediately after an activation step if your warband holds more objectives than the other warband, and each objective token is within 1 hex of no one's territory in a hex occupied by a friendly fighter. That's potentially good. It could be another hidden purpose depending on how you set up your objectives. Underground Fortress. Dual. Scores an end phase of 3 or more friendly fighters are on feature tokens, and 2 or more of those fighters are all adjacent. So you need... It's not bad for 2 glory, but you have to have the feature tokens next to each other, which is the problem. For Gambits, you have Bound Spirit, which is a trap and denzine. Reaction plays it after enemy fighter's activation. If that fighter is adjacent to 1 or more feature tokens that are in the same hex as a friendly fighter, deal 1 damage to that enemy fighter, and it is 2 situational. Determined Push. Reaction plays it after friendly fighter's attack action. Pick 1. Push that friendly fighter 1 hex towards the hex their target occupied during that declare action step, or 1 hex towards the nearest feature token. It's okay. It's like you follow through. It's weird. I'm not a fan of that. Gnarlwood Tusk is a trap. Play this after for enemy fighter or move action adjacent to 1 or more feature tokens that are in the same hex as a friendly fighter. Stagger the enemy fire. No, thank you. Healing Ward. Choose 1 friendly fighter on a feature token. Heal 1. Nope. Healing Potion is better. Makeshift Bombardment. Choose 1 friendly fighter on a feature token and choose 1 enemy fighter visible within 3. Pick 1, stagger that chosen enemy fighter, or push the chosen enemy fighter 1 hex away from that friendly fighter. That's actually okay. It's not bad. It's a weird distraction in my opinion. Opportunistic Reprisal. Reaction. Places after an enemy fighter's attack action if that fighter is staggered. Choose 1 friendly fighter. That chosen fighter makes 1 attack action that must target the enemy fighter. If you have a lot of stagger tech, this is great. Otherwise, no. Ready for anything. +1 defense for each fighter on a feature token. It's okay. Redeploy. Choose 1 friendly fighter on a feature token in your territory. Push that fighter up to 4 hexes. At the end of that push, that fighter must be on a feature token. It's pretty good, actually. Pretty good. Take your positions is restricted to your leader. Choose up to 2 friendly fighters in your territory other than your leader. Push each fighter 1 hex closer towards the nearest feature token. That's okay. Tangle Briar. Place 1 available snare token in a hex within 1 hex of 1 or more friendly fighters. It's okay. Bold Engineer. +2 move except during a charge action. Reaction. After an enemy fighter's activation, pick 1 feature token in an empty hex adjacent to this fighter. Place that feature token in this fighter's hex. It's okay, but it's more to make the deck function. Defensive charges. Reaction. After this fighter's activation, stagger each enemy fighter adjacent to 1 or more feature tokens that are in the same hex as friendly fighter, then break this card. No. Hardy Scout. You cannot give this to a large fighter. +1 move, +1 wounds while this fighter is not in your territory. I think that's actually pretty neat. Mason's Great Hammer is attack action. Range 1, 2 smash, 2 damage with cleave and Grievous 1 on a crit. Reaction. After this fighter's activation, remove a feature token from this fighter's hex, then place another available feature token in this fighter's hex. So you can swap around feature token. Melding Stone is a metalith. Each fighter within 2 hexes of this fighter that contains a feature token is considered to be in a cover hex in addition to any other cover types. It's not that great. Rapid Defender. Reaction after an enemy fighter's move action. If that enemy fighter is in no one's territory or your territory, push this fighter 1 hex towards that fighter. It's okay. Siege Master. Reaction after this fighter's activation. If this fighter is on a feature token within 1 hex of no one's territory, choose up to 2 friendly fighters on feature tokens. Give each of them guard tokens. No, it's not great. Stalwart Sentinel. This fighter cannot be pushed by an opponent's warband while this fighter is on a feature token within 1 hex of no one's territory. That's actually pretty okay. Starmore. Range 4, 2 smash, 1 damage with stagger. It's a cannon, all right. I don't know how it synergizes with the deck, but it exists. Walking Wall. For the purpose of this card, with the Fearsome Fortress symbol, while this fighter is not on a feature token, this fighter is considered to be on a feature token, and this fighter's hex is considered to contain a feature token that cannot be flipped. Another card that exists to make this deck work. So, for the Warband overview, this is a weird Warband. It's a kind of aggro Warband that wants to be in your face, but doesn't really have much mobility or wounds or defense to survive this plan to make contact with the enemy. It's all about questing and inspiring on the thematic side of being Goblin Knights. Works. Does this warband work that as like on the tabletop? I'd be surprised if it did. It has the Zarbag's Gits problem where it has too many squishy fighters and not enough high dealing damage. But even Zarbag's Gits did more damage. And to be honest, I think while the miniatures look amazing, I think Zarbag's Gits is the better warband. And it's just, while each warband can inspire individually from quest cards, it kind of clashes with what your leader does. And I feel that was like a balance change. So maybe these guys were dominating in playtesting, but I struggle to see how, even with like, you know, championship as a whole. And then for the Rivals deck, I think this is a massive step back from the Rivals decks we got in the core set. I think this Rivals deck is actually pretty horrible. It has one or two good cards, I would say, but then the problem is those cards are locked to this Rivals deck, so if you're using it for Championship, it's actually quite limiting. So I find the Rivals deck really disappointing. So like for the pros and cons, the warband looks beautiful. It's a perfectly Goblin squiggy warband. It's very thematic, as in like it plays very thematically towards these Goblin-y knights, and you'll have a lot of fun doing so, and they've got some neat power cards. But the downside is, well, they're quite slow warband with very limited mobility tools, and they want to be aggressive in enemy territory, which they're going to struggle to do, really. You know, they're also a 7-fighter warband, so they're going to bleed quite a lot of glory, and they have quite low damage output, so they're going to struggle to deal damage back to the opponent. And they're just kind of a weird miss. Like, I dislike how the leader's Inspire condition clashes with quest cards. If that leader didn't have the restriction, or his Inspire condition needed like 3 or 2 fighters instead of like 4, I think it is at the moment. Like, basically he needs 1 less friendly fighter inspired for himself to inspire. So it's quite a shame there. For the Rivals deck, the pros is it uses a new idea, you know, basing a deck around being on feature tokens within 1 hex of no one's territory. Precisely 1 hex. That's an interesting theme for a Rivals deck. You know, downside, it's pretty bad. It's one of the worst Rivals decks we've had for this season anyway. It's not as bad as the previous Rivals decks we've had, but it's close. Like, the cards are very limiting. They don't actually support what the Rivals deck wants to do, and I find the Rivals deck is just a poor synergy overall, so it's quite bad. So would I recommend the Warband and the Rivals deck? Well, I think the Warband, if you're playing Rivals, it's probably going to just be okay. If you were looking to play it in Championship, I probably wouldn't recommend this Warband. But if you're just playing casually in Rivals, it should be fun. You'll have enough fun with this Warband. As I said, it does look really good. Like, the scopes are great. I just love GW Goblin stuff. But gameplay-wise, it's a lot to be desired. And then for the Rivals deck, I wouldn't recommend. It's just bad, you know? Like, if it was as good as the ones we got in the Gnarlwood core set, I would be happy to recommend. But I would just pass. Like, unless there's some weird chase card you need for Championship play. Otherwise, just pass, which is a shame. But that's pretty much it for me today. Remember, if you want to get these Warband and Rivals decks, you can do so via my affiliate element games down in the episode description below, which will net you a 15 to 25% discount while at no additional cost to yourself, helping to support me and the channel. So check it out if you can. That's pretty much it for me today. You know, you can tell my voice is almost dead, still recovering from being sick, and it's barely in a state where I can record. So I had to record this because I haven't had a voice for like 10 days. So I'm recording while I still can. But please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know what you thought of this Warband and Rivals deck. Be really interested to hear how you think it's shaping up for this Gnarlwood season. And remember, I've got a Discord you can check out in the episode description below, as well as a Patreon if you want to give me some more support. So I'll quickly thank my patrons. So for my Adepts of the Crit, I have Zamari, Sam, Ninja Lee 83, John Thomas, Captain Murder, Dave, Daniel, Average Joe 27, and Adzik. And then for my Veterans of the Crit, I have Samja. So thank you so much. This is what really means a lot to me and helps support the channel. That's pretty much it. You know, done another Underworlds review. I'll be back again soon. Obviously, I have an article version in the episode description below if you want to see the cards on their own. But that's pretty much it from me today. Another nice Underworlds review. So remember, even if you're lost in the Gnarlwoods of Warhammer Underworlds, even if you're being chased down by the bouncy Knights of Doom from the Looncurse, remember there's always hope, as long as you can roll a crit.